All right, finally over COVID. That was fun. Time to build a welding cart. So these are my four 220 volt machines that I currently have. You can see that Vulcan's brand new, still in the box. Haven't even taken it out yet. So I'm gonna do a quick review of these machines, like really quick, my experience with them. This is a 220 volt Craftsman stick welder, arc welder. It was my grandfather's. He passed away and this was my inheritance from him, and it has some sentimentality to it. So even though the new Vulcan can do stick, I'm gonna hold on to this. Only because if I run into a situation where I don't have any of the consumables for those two machines and I just need to get something done, I can plug this one in, throw an electrode in, and go. This machine in particular is pretty old. This is probably like 20 plus years old, and it's very heavy. It's a transformer type, but these are known for being very, very reliable. I've heard of guys leaving these out in the rain and then letting them air dry and they fire right up, no problem. I've used it to repair a wood stove and a couple small projects. Haven't had any issues with it. It's just really, really heavy. The next one up here, I've had this for a while too. I've had this for like 10 years. This is just a cheap little Everlast Supercut 50P plasma cutter. It does come equipped with a 115 volt plug and a 220 volt. And I'll be honest with you, if you try to run this on 115, it's not gonna run very well. However, once you add a 220 volt plug to this thing, it will cut through pretty much anything, even for a cheap machine. This machine right here, I bought it almost 10 years ago for like $400. And it did actually run on my 8-gallon compressor. It did have to catch up every once in a while, but I used it to cut the holes out on the heat exchanger on the waste oil heater. So great little machine. I've used it quite a few times. Comes in handy to have, and fairly inexpensive. By the way, I forgot to mention that these stick welders, like that one right there, you can pick those up pretty cheap. They're like 50 to 100 bucks if you want to get a really good stick welder. Obviously, the next one is my Hobart 190, and my friend and I swear by this machine. We've had this machine collectively between the two of us. He has his own, obviously. But the two of us have owned it collectively for 25 years. And the only thing that has ever happened as far as issues is the wire, the wheel of wire in there will unravel itself sometimes. And the only reason it does that is operator error. You didn't tighten down the tension nut enough. It's a big plastic nut in there that keeps tension on the reel. And that's it. I've never had this thing not work. It's worked awesome. And the newest machine here is the Vulcan ProTig 205. And I have zero experience using this. I actually bought this after watching many YouTube reviews and people using this machine, seeing how it performed, and going back to some videos where people used it for a year and did another review. It gets a lot of praise on YouTube from a lot of guys that use these, and some of them even do compare it to a Miller. So those are the four machines I have. So I'm gonna have to build a new cart. The cart that the Hobart's sitting on was actually a cylinder rack that I took out of a work van when I used to work at a junkyard. It served its purpose. It was a little bit of a recycled job, just something to get the welder on to roll around. And the only reason I'm putting them all on four is I don't really have a ton of bench space. I mean, I could put one right there, but that's just one machine or two machines. My plug is right there, so I need something I can roll all four around on. I don't necessarily have a big shop, but all my bench space is becoming like a premium real estate. So as far as building this cart, I could have bought one. There's only one cart that I found that was, I think it was $300. And it holds 2 or 3 machines on the top, but it wouldn't hold all the weight. So I ended up just deciding to buy all the steel. This is 2" by 2" by the 1/8", I think. Total cost of all of this, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 4-foot pieces. So 32 feet of 2 by 2 square tubing, 8" solid rubber wheels, some casters, and a little bit of extra steel in case I need it. Total cost for everything on this table right here was around $250. So I'm gonna end up building something that's bigger. It'll house all 4 machines, and I think it's gonna be a lot more sturdy because a lot of the welding carts out there, they only hold 1 or 2 machines, maybe 3 max, but they're kind of, you know, flimsy, thin sheet metal type cabinet looking welding carts. And the total weight of all this it's pretty heavy. It's around 450 pounds for everything on the cart. The one big thing that's adding a lot of weight is this cylinder right here. I have a 300 cubic foot cylinder for the TIG welder. and I have my 125, so that's a lot of weight. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sketch up what this looks like, take all the dimensions, and draw a diagram. I normally use my 2D CAD program that I use to design things, but I think I'm just gonna go old school this time and draw it out on paper. All right, that wasn't too bad. So this drawing right here is the basic setup that I could have, the most basic. You might have to extend like some pieces up and over this way so that the way I'll put the cylinders here, I'll want to be able to tighten them down so they don't move. But if I were to make it as simple as possible, this is basically what it is. It's just a rolling cart. Now, keep in mind, again, I said that I could have bought a cart, but I didn't find one exactly to my needs because the way I want to do this is I want 2 machines on the bottom and 2 machines on the top. I'm going to do stick and plasma on the bottom and the MIG welder and the TIG welder on the top. And they'll all be facing this way, only because the way it'll roll up to my table, the plug will be behind it all the time. So basically what I want to do is, if I were to draw each shelf, if this was the bottom shelf, it's going to be more square, but you get the idea. I'll have a cylinder here and a cylinder here. Obviously, my wheels will be here. And I want to do the 2 machines. This is the top. This is like a bird's eye view. This is top of the top. So this would be my MIG, and this would be my TIG. And then the bottom would just be the stick and the plasma. Pretty easy to draw. I mean, like I said, this is just like a rolling cart, but I like to lay everything out, get all my dimensions of everything, the weight to make sure I have wheels and casters that can handle that much weight, and all the maximum dimensions of everything together, because the MIG and the stick will be on the same shelf. So I need something I need to build it wide and long enough to accommodate both of them side by side with maybe an inch or 2 of space between them. So normally I would have done this in my CAD program, but I figured this wouldn't take very long. It probably took me less time to just draw this out than to go down on my computer and fire it up and open up the program and all that. So let's start cutting. All right. Got all the pieces cut, and I actually made a mistake. You can see where I had to pay for that mistake. So I wanted to orientate the welders on the top side by side, but me being an idiot, totally forgot that I can't have the MIG welder on the side facing this way because I need to be able to change the wire out. So unfortunately, I paid for that mistake by having to re-weld a piece back on. Not a big deal though. So this is basically what it's going to look like right here. Kind of looks a little funky. It's not set up correctly because I haven't tacked it, but this piece here, the bottom, that's the bottom shelf. These are just simulating 4-foot pieces. They'll come up 4 feet, and I'll probably put something across them. So the 2 tanks will sit here next to each other. This whole second shelf will be up on top of here, and that's why I'll have the 2 welders here, plasma cutter, and the stick welder, or vice versa. So it actually works out because this is going to have that amount of overhang, and I could put some like hooks on it or something to hold like the welding helmet, gloves, whatever. So I had purchased just enough of the 2x2 square tubing to do it. So luckily I didn't screw up too bad, and I just had to weld a couple pieces back together. I would have liked to have had it a little bit shorter, but live and learn, right? So I'm gonna get this all tacked together. I may build the shelves first, like the floor of the shelves. And for that, I wanted to talk just one quick second about the price of steel, because steel has gone up quite a bit. This is what I was originally gonna use, just expanded steel, and just use some like 1/8 inch bar stock flat steel or something just to kind of give it a little support. Now I bought this piece right here. I bought this a while ago to make a guard over the belt on the waste oil heater. And I can tell you I paid maybe 20 bucks for this, for a 2x2 piece of expanded steel. Nowadays, if you go to buy a piece of this at Home Depot, it only comes in 1x1 foot squares now. And it's not as thick. It's very, very thin. It's very flimsy. And I couldn't find any more 2x2 pieces. So it kind of led me down the road of trying to figure out what I was going to use for the shelf floors. And that led me to Tractor Supply. Now, I kind of lucked out. This may add a lot of cost to other people's carts, depending on how you do it. But these are pieces of, I think it's like 1.5 or 1.25 by 1/2 inch box tubing, rectangular tubing. Not in the greatest shape. I have to cut some of this stuff off. These came from shipping crates. They were like shipping frames that they use to ship items to Tractor Supply. And I spoke to one of their employees, and he actually told me about them and said they were out back and that they were trying to get rid of them. So he gave them to me for free. And they didn't look like this when I got them. They were like in the shape of a frame. I had to cut it. But I think I have enough material here to completely build like the floor of each shelf out of. It came with other pieces of tubing, like this, I think it's 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch square tubing. It's kind of thin, but it's usable steel. You know, it's all powder coated, so it has a little surface rust on it. But I think it'll clean up pretty nice, and it's very, very rigid. And it's definitely gonna be a lot more rigid than if I had used the expanded steel. So that's how I'm gonna make the shelves out of it. All right, here we are. I got a little exploded view for you before I start welding it together. I got my 2 towers there that the cylinders will get fastened to, secured to, and I had just enough scrap steel left over to put a bar across. It might look funky, but I'm thinking if I extend this down a little bit, put caps on it, I could actually put my filler material in there, my filler rods for the TIG welder. So, back to this. This is the bottom shelf here. It's kind of together how it would go. These will all sit flush up against the top when it's all welded together. This is the bottom shelf. Once this is welded together, it'll be welded on top of these, and then these will just be butt welded right against the top posts. So, all in all, it's gonna be pretty beefy. I think it's gonna suit my needs just fine, and I built it beefy because it's gonna be carrying around 450 pounds of weight. So, we'll see what it looks like when it's done. Well, there she is. She's looking good, and she's heavy. As you can see, I did add 1 hook right there for the MIG leads for now. I may add a bar that goes across the top with a couple hooks. I kind of want to set up all the machines, add all of their cables, and then I can kind of figure out where it's going to naturally fall on the machine so that they're kind of not just hanging off the side. Because honestly, I don't really like that. It kind of looks sloppy. But for what I need this for, it's gonna work. There's a lot of weight on that cart, and it rolls around really nice. I gotta add a handle. See, I have to be careful where I put my handle because I have to be able to open this door. So I could probably put one right here, but it's actually not that bad to roll it around. But it rolls nice. I did put locking casters on it so it's not gonna go anywhere. Got my cylinder lock bar, which this is kind of a mistake. I'm willing to admit my mistakes. What I should have done is just square up both bottles to this bar and put this behind it to simplify it. And I spent way too much time doing this, but it works. It locks the bottles in place. It's not going anywhere. It's not going. These are real tight. I did add the very last part of my hyperlapse. You can see that I added just some holders there. That way this MIG welder won't move around because the bottom of this hole bar is steel, so it'll slide on the metal surface. Luckily, the TIG welder actually has like a rubber bottom on it, and it's not really gonna move anywhere. So I didn't add any feet to it, not to mention I didn't really have much room. So I literally made this cart just the right size to just hold the machines. I have a feeling that the cable management, I can make it somewhat tidy. It may look a little messy, and I may even leave some of the leads off. Like I might not attach the plasma cutter leads. I might just coil them up and put them on top until I'm ready to use them, only because I don't use that very often. But all in all, this was a fun project. I think it came out pretty nice. It's pretty heavy duty, and it costs around $250. So hopefully if you're looking to build a new welding cart, you need something this big, it'll inspire you, give you some ideas. But other than that, as far as this build, it was fun. And I have another build coming up very soon that is much, much bigger than this. And it's probably gonna take me way more than just a couple days in the garage. It may take me 6 to 8 months, and I will be making a series out of it. And it's something I've been waiting 14 years to do. So I look forward to that. So stick around. Thanks for watching.